Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to a deck tech. Now, for this particular deck tech, we're going to be going over my fairly new Advanced Zash red deck. Now, for those of you who have been around for a couple of months, you'll know that I've played a lot of Advanced Zash in the past, various different versions, since red was a very, very strong color for pretty much the entirety of Spellweaver's history. But in the last patch, they got nerfed fairly heavily. Namely, Advanced Zash doesn't do damage to heroes anymore, which is a nerf to his aggressive side. Fireball got changed to 3 mana, and the Lizard got changed to a 1/2 that gains an attack when it hits the enemy hero instead of just all the time. However, you can attack things with Lizard now, which is actually very relevant against soldiers. The meta is actually quite friendly to the Lizard. Anyway, so what we're going to do is go over the deck, and then we're going to play a game with it, just to kind of show what a token game of this particular deck would be. Now, I haven't built a tournament sideboard for this, because this is not a deck I would take to a tournament. I'll probably do tournament sideboards after the next patch in deck tech, so I'll just start doing tournament sideboards for that, for anyone that actually wants to see how you would sideboard for tournaments. But with this particular balance patch coming to an end, I didn't really feel as if it was necessary. Anyway, so first things first, well, you got to have the Rage card back, obviously, although I do think that the other card back you could have is probably Fia. Just random tidbit. So, hero, Advanced Zash. Now, Advanced Zash over Basic Zash and Burke. Those are basically the three options. Basic Zash is the most aggressive. Burke is kind of in the middle, and Zash is the most mid-rangey. Now, the reason I've gone for Zash is because I think that the sort of Cataclysm on a stick is actually quite useful in the current metagame, because the games do drag on a bit, and you often need a little bit of extra time to finish out the game than you used to, simply because Ramgath isn't around anymore, in terms of the way it used to be. So, the hero power is actually fairly handy. On to the 1-drops. Now I'm playing 7 1-drops total, 4 Lizard and 3 Goblin. This split's an interesting one, because Lizard in its current state is very good against soldiers and not very good against elves. However, Goblin is the opposite. Goblin's atrocious against soldiers and quite good against elves, because it trades up normally, or trades on par, whereas against soldiers it just doesn't really trade. Even against Dwarf Musketeer, you can sacrifice the Lizard and attack it with something else to get through, but you need 2 Goblins just to hold the damage off and then attack it. It's just not good against Order in general. And Order is more popular than Green, so the Goblin Warrior gets knocked down in the count. But the point is, you need the 7 1-drops. You need to be hyper-aggressive out of the gate, and this deck can get some very, very ultra-aggressive starts, though it does have a bit of a dual-mode nature to it, like a lot of these Advanced Zash decks do. Now, onto the 2-drops, 6 2-drops. This has become pretty standard for red decks that I've been making. 3 Fia, because you don't want the 4th one, because it's a legendary. Fia has always been good. It's never been bad. It's at its best when red is popular, but even now it's good. You can use it with Fireball to kill things with 4 HP, although that is probably the least relevant it's ever been before. There aren't that many 4 HP threats in the game right now. But besides that, it kills Militia, it trades with Dwarf Musketeer, it trades with Sharpshooter. It's just good in general. Fia's never bad, pretty much, unless you have multiple, which is why you only play 3. The other 2-drop is Goblin Fireworker. Now, Fireworker is a pretty handy 2-drop right now. Honestly, the 2/2 stats have become way better than they used to be because of all the Militia running around. And on top of that, the fact that you can sacrifice it to destroy an artifact is key, because the other color played the most is Dominion. And a Helm on your Phoenix is horrible, and if you have Fireworker, it's Helm insurance. You just get to kill the Helms, and then your opponent basically just traded a Helm for a Fireworker, which is not a good trade. So, yeah, the Fireworker is necessary as a 3-of right now. I used to have it as a 2, but I think that 6 2-drops is necessary if you're trying to be aggressive. And the 3 Fireworker are much better than they used to be. Onto the 3-drop creature. There's only one 3-drop creature in this deck, which is Gibber and Ronnie, which surprises absolutely no one. Gibber and Ronnie is one of the best creatures in the game. It's not like really far up there, but it's definitely very, very good. It provides a lot of value. Just the 3 mana, you get effectively 4 attack and 2 health across 2 bodies, which is actually very, very good, because it means you can trade into Protector, which is one of the counters to red decks in general. You can trade into Protector. It does have a problem with Sharpshooter, but it does mean the Sharpshooter can't snipe the entire 3-drop in one hit. So it's bad against Sharpshooter, but at least you get to respond to the Sharpshooter and you don't lose your entire 3-drop. Now, the other thing about Give 'em Run is it does allow you to swarm the board a lot, and with not that much red around, its one weakness, which was Fire Blast, is not really seeing that much play. So you get to swarm the board a lot. Even against Bloodseeking Mutant, you can only kill one goblin a turn, so you just get to out-swarm the mutant and just attack through. In fact, that's something which this deck does fairly well, is dealing with Bloodseeking Mutant, because you've got 4 Fireball, which we'll get to, and then you've got Word of Fire, which usually kills it later in the game, and even things like Dragonfire and Flame Serpent to deal with it, and the Hero Power. This deck probably has more ways of dealing with Bloodseeking Mutant than any other deck in the entire game. So, before we get on to the upper end stuff, we'll look at the early game removal. Now, Word of Fire. Now, for anyone who's seen my top 10 spells list, I actually had Word of Fire and Fire Blast in the top 3. And Word of Fire is really at its best in mono red and becomes quite frankly disgusting, because you always go up to 3 levels. So in the early game, it kills something. In the mid game, like turn 3, 4, it does 2 damage and kills something. And then in the late game, it does 3, kills something and draws a card. It's just disgusting. And it's one of those cards that is never bad. Like, it's good in the early game, good in the mid game, good in the late game. It just can't be bad. And in fact, it's an early game removal spell that arguably gets better over time, because top decking Word of Fire and using it as removal allows for some ridiculous plays. Like yesterday on stream, I was basically going to lose, and I top decked Word of Fire and just went Word of Fire on both of his blockers, and then played Flame Serpent and killed him. And it was the only combination of cards that could have done it, and it's only possible because of Word of Fire. The card is that good. It's absolutely bonkers. It's not quite as good as Fire Blast, but that's mostly because of the meta as opposed to the card itself. Word of Fire is definitely one of the best cards in the deck. On to Fireball. Now, Fireball is a 4-of. I can see playing 3 because it's not that amazing anymore. I don't know. It's okay. It deals with Library Guards. It deals with Harpy if you ever run into it. It does deal with Mutant. So the card itself is good. The fact that it's instant and can go to the face is very nice. But honestly, I would not argue if someone just put in an extra late game burn spell and went down to 3 Fireball, because I think it's a personal preference thing. I play a bit more control-y when I'm playing red decks, so I like the extra removal. But Fireball isn't the powerhouse it used to be. It's just kind of a solid removal spell. It can be used as burn to go to the face, although you don't have as many of those like end of turn double Fireball plays like you used to, because that takes 6 mana now, not 4. So that's a big deal. The 1 mana nerf really hurt the card. I think it was definitely warranted, but it really hurt the card. So if you want to play 3, go for it. I just happen to be playing 4 in this list since I like the removal option. The last of the removal spells is Fire Blast. Now, Fire Blast is, in my opinion, the best spell in the game. Why? Because it's completely overpowered against certain decks. It just completely annihilates any aggressive deck in the game, and is almost never bad. It's only bad against creatureless decks, like Chalice decks and things, but this deck is good against Chalice decks anyway. So, it's good against soldiers, it's good against elves, it's good against Wisdom Dominion. You wouldn't think it'd be good against Wisdom Dominion, but it actually is, because it clears a creature and a protector shield, which is a big deal. It's also good against Elrike, and Elrike has been showing up a lot recently. In fact, this deck is one of the easier times against Elrike. Though I did lose twice to Elrike Green in a row yesterday, but that was more to do with Missed Divine Offerings than anything else. But Fire Blast is one of the best cards in the game, and should not be underestimated. And playing 4 I think is necessary, because 2 Fire Blast basically wins you any game you're in right now against most meta decks. Because most of the meta decks right now are revolving around overwhelming their opponent and spreading on the board, and if you just go Fire Blast, Hero Power, they can't win. They actually run out of resources, and then you just grind them out with Phoenixes and burn spells, and you just win from there. So Fire Blast is definitely, actually, in some matchups, it's actually a win condition, which I find very funny. Now, on to the last, creature, since Flame Serpent's basically a burn spell. The Massacration Phoenix. No one calls it Massacration, it's a cool name. But, yeah, Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is the most stable value engine of any creature in the game, I think. Blood-Seeking Mutant is less of a value engine, more of a sort of stabilization, because they have to kill it and you kill something and things like that. But Phoenix is one of the best, if not the best, just value engine. You play your on turn 5, you play your Phoenix, or even on turn 4 with Spark. You play your Phoenix, it's a 3/3 with flying, with 3 speed, it kills Library Guards, Halderia Rider, Elf Commander, any of the soldiers, it just kills everything. And on top of that, it comes back. Now, Phoenix is only held back by 2 cards. Pacify and Helm of Dominion. Helm of Dominion we deal with the Helm Insurance Goblin. Pacify is a problem, and it does mean that Phoenix often ends up just sitting back against soldiers until you draw a board clear, and just stalling out until you draw a board clear, and then you just clear the board, and then you can start attacking without having much issues. Without having much of an issue. But Phoenix in general is very, very powerful. Something else you can do with Phoenix is, if you're worried about hasted threats, attack him, and if he can't block it, he just lets the damage through, and then you just use Adv Zash's ability to wipe your own Phoenix, and then it resurrects and it's readied up for a hasted block. You can do that as well by killing your own Phoenix with Fireball, which I have done in the past. So Phoenix is definitely a very, very powerful creature, and you can't really come up with an excuse for not running 4. Onto the burn spells. Now, every red deck is defined by its selection of burn spells. Generally, you want 6, maybe 7, depending on the way you want to play it, 5 damage burn spells. And I've picked 3 Flame Serpent and 3 Dragonfire. Now, I'll talk about Flame Serpent, because Dragonfire is fairly obvious, but 3 Flame Serpent. The reason I'm not playing Ramgath was nerfed by 1 mana. And this is a huge deal, because it means you can't go Phoenix to stabilize, Ramgath to apply pressure. You can't do that anymore. What you can do, however, is Phoenix to stabilize, Flame Serpent to kill one of their guys and add pressure, and then you can just wipe his board instead. It's not as good as Ramgath was, which is why I wasn't playing Flame Serpent before and I was playing Ramgath. But Flame Serpent is it's a fairly decent substitution. It also functions as a pseudo-removal spell, which is nice, and against creatures is actually, in a lot of situations, better than Dragonfire, because you can deal 3 damage to them and then 2 damage to that creature. The problem is it can be blocked, and that reduces the damage. It also dies to things like Pacify, Fireball, Flash Freeze, which is awkward. There's some ways of dealing with Flame Serpent where you couldn't deal with it with Ramgath as much. Now, the one benefit of Flame Serpent over Ramgath is that with Ramgath, if they had 2 blockers, if they had just like a 1/1 and like if they had 2 elves on the board, they could actually just double block their Ramgath and his token and kill it and not lose any health. Whereas the Flame Serpent, it's harder to do that, but generally it's worse than old Ramgath, but better than the new one. The last card in the deck is Dragonfire. Now, Dragonfire is the go-to burn spell for the late game because it basically should read deal 5 damage to the enemy hero. When you're using it as removal, you either have done one of 2 things. You're either losing so you need to, or you've changed your game plan to more of a removal-focused strategy. Now, this comes up against Angel decks particularly, although those haven't been around recently. Where against Angel decks, you can actually switch modes and just use Dragonfire, Word of Fire, and your hero power to just wipe out all of their angels over and over and over again, and you can win just through that. Now, as for the shrine count, 21 shrines is pretty much standard for any of my decks at this point. I just prefer 21 over 20, and I think 22 is too much, so I pretty much always run 21. I just like the consistency of 21 shrines. So anyway, let's take this into a game. Now, I'm going to see if I can get a rank game. We'll see, because the rank queue is a bit volatile as far as queue times goes. So we'll wait for 20 seconds, and then if it doesn't match me instantly, I'll just go to friendlies. So anyway, I am going to be doing a trial video as my next one. So, yep, if you like trial videos, then that's coming out next. So a couple people asked me to do them. I've been doing really well in trials recently, actually. The last trial run I did wasn't too good. That was, I think, 5 or 6 wins. I think I was 6 wins. But in the last 5 runs, no, the last 6 runs. Last 6 runs, I've gone 10 wins 4 times, which is just insane. Like, I think that's the best I've ever done in trials. It's just ludicrous. like having an 82% win rate in Trials is not something that you should expect. Although part of the reason for it is because I think the Trials format right now is pretty easy to solve. You basically either go red-green or Dominion. Like, green-blue is okay, but it has some issues against Dominion decks. Whereas red-green can just outpace the rest of the format if you get a decent red-green deck. Whereas the Dominion decks just have Bloodseeking Mutant and all the value spells. Like Bloodseeking Mutant, Helm. In general, the Dominion decks are just way superior in Trials to anything else. So that's a tip. If you want to do well in Trials, just pick Dominion. It really is like that right now. Although they said they're going to nerf Dominion soon, or more accurately, Bloodseeking Mutant. Bloodseeking Mutant seems to be getting not the axe, but definitely the nerf bat. Coming up to the next patch. Alright, Coronis. Now, I both like and dislike this hand. I think I'm going to pass on it because it's got Phoenix as its primary threat, and I'm against Dominion. This is worse, I think. No, it's not that much worse. I'm just going to keep the Spark for a Fire Blast, because I think this may be a matchup where I have to go Fire Blast, Fire Blast. Yeah, it is. Okay. If he attacks, I'll block. I'm not going to take 3. I'm playing against probably an Implant deck, like Implant Elves, which could be a problem in the early game, although I think I should be fine moving into late game. And this is actually the point I was making earlier, is that the 2 HP matters a lot now, whereas before it really didn't. Before it was just a bad 1-drop. I mean, not a bad 1-drop, it was like a 1-drop for 2 mana, that's what it was. Whereas now it's actually a legit 2-drop, because 2-2 is a lot harder to deal with than 2-1 in the current state of the game. Oh, another Spoiled Aristocrat, and there's the Ambush Strike, okay. So, I'm just going to Fire Blast this board, I think, because otherwise he gets a Raven out of it. He's also running out of resources, he's down to only 4 cards now, but down to 3 cards in hand after this turn. Alright, Elf Warrior. Just the Elf Warrior. Well, I think I've got to play a more controlling style this game. I just hope I draw into some more threats later on, because I'm just not drawing into that many creatures right now. This was a bit of a rough opening hand, but I couldn't keep the first one, it was too risky. He does have to Divine Offering every turn, so as soon as he misses, he's in trouble card advantage-wise. And there's the Phoenix. So, if he goes Helm, then he can't use his hero power. And if he doesn't have Helm, I think he just loses. That's basically what happens here. And I don't think Helm is like the end of the game or anything, because I can just deal with it with hero powers over multiple turns. Or if I top deck a artifact removal, then he's in serious trouble. Let's just leave Fireball up and play the Goblin. See what he does. Because if he ties this up and then attacks face, he's going to go for a Raven, so I can just Fireball this and then untap hero power. Yep, and he is. Well, I've got to Fireball the Phoenix now, because I don't want to let him keep a Phoenix on the board. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, we're just going to hero power this turn, so I may as well just attack for the sake of it, see what he does. Yeah. Nah, it was a mistake, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just not attacked, because then he gains 1 life for no reason. That Helm was kind of brutal. Now, what I'm worried about right now is card quality. Like, I am having some issues with card quality, although he does know I've got Fire Blast. I don't know why he played the Elf Scout there. Oh, time for the Word of Fire gets absurd at this stage of the game. That's a perfect example as to why. I'm just going to play the Gibber on Ronnie. If he trades, I don't really mind. That hero power could be issues. Could be a few issues. Yeah, I expected that. So he's going to just try and use his hero power as a card advantage engine. I want to see if he trades. He didn't. Alright, so this could be an implant. Maybe I should have Fire Blasted there. I don't know, it's difficult to gauge. Nah, because if I had, I wouldn't be able to deal with this, so yeah. He is setting up a Fire Blast, so he needs to trade if he doesn't want to set up this Fire Blast. It's always difficult to play around Fire Blast. It's not an easy card to play around, that's for sure. See if he has a bounce. Like, that's a lot of damage that he's got to be worried about. Okay, so he's just blocking there, which I'm completely fine with. That means he doesn't have a creature on the board to pump up his Soul Raven. The thing about playing Coronis is you need to deal damage to your opponent every turn. Devious Plot. Interesting. Alright, so this is where it starts getting a bit stalematey. Because we're both playing a one-for-one plan. It's so stupid in the late game. Word of Fire chaining. And I think I just win here. Yeah, that's game. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant earlier when I was talking about Word of Fire. Was, like, if it wasn't for Word of Fire, I wouldn't have won the game in that turn. And I played 2 Word of Fires in that game, and they killed 2 Haldiri Riders. That's how powerful they are. Like, Word of Fire is an absolutely insane card in Mono-Red. But anyway, so that's my Mono-Red deck tech. Now, before I head off, I have been playing this on ladder a little bit, because, let's just say ladder is Alexa dominated. This is one hell of a screenshot. It shows Alexa, but that's because I played, I think, one more game with Alexa than I have with Zash. But I did play Zash, and I got from like rank 9 to 4 at one point. And then I just dropped because other people went above me. But I did get to rank 4 with it, and I think I could probably get to rank 2 or 1 with this deck, maybe. It depends on, obviously, a bit of variance, and it's something which I'm not going to try because there's going to be a new patch and several resets before the end of the season. We've got 3 more ranking resets and a patch before then, so I'm not going to focus too much on trying to grind up to first place with this deck. But I do think it could be done. So if you wanna try it out for ranked in top 10, then go for it if that's something you're aiming for. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, want to ask me any questions about the deck, put it in the comment section below. But as now, it's been Jotto, signing off.